All right, we're live. This is the Live with Sondra show, and I'm your host, Sondra Shannon, CEO of Gatemaster Technology. And boy, oh boy, do I have a guest for you. Probably, I should say probably the person who I would say is my favorite person in the entire world. And I can tell you that because I met this person 20 years ago. At a time, I was 25 years old, a young professional here at Gatemaster with big dreams, ambitions. And I told him everything I envisioned about my future, from becoming a CEO of Gatemaster to building a life as a wife and mother. And from the very beginning, this person never doubted me. And instead, he became my biggest champion. He's the one who convinced me that I could have it all, and he's been with me through every challenge and triumph in both business and life. And he stood by my side, and he's believed in me. Sometimes when I'm struggling, even when I don't believe in myself. And I'm very excited today to introduce you to Jake Shannon, my husband and Coach Jake. But before we get started, let me just tell you today we're going to be talking about how to unlock peak performance through coaching and strategies for boosting revenue. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to my husband and coach, Jake Shannon. Jake, welcome to the stage.
Wow, what a great intro.
Well, except for I didn't get to your bio. I was so excited to get you here. I have to admit to the audience.
You know
We
what's great about this? Next time we have an argument, I'm just gonna freaking cue this up and I'm gonna just play it for you.
Oh, well, you know what? I have to say I was getting a little choked up there. I was getting a little choked up because you are everything that was my introduction, but let me just tell the world who you are, because outside of all those amazing things that I said about you and how I feel about you, you are a dynamic entrepreneur, a business coach with a revolutionary impact in industries across the world. I'm really excited to tell everyone about what you do there. You're the number one elite business coach for Grant Cardone, empowering high performing entrepreneurs. And what is this? How many months running? What are we on?
So this will be the 10th month in a row, but I'm also number one for 2024, and we'll be getting up on the GrowthCon stage, which is the biggest business conference in the world, about 70,000 in front of 70,000 people here in about a week. So yeah, I'm really excited. Worked very hard, and I couldn't have done it without the support of you as well. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Hey, and I'm not done talking about you. I also want to tell the world that you are the founder and head coach of Scientific Wrestling. You are the inventor of the Macebell. I've not yet told this audience much about the Macebell, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. But the Macebell sparked a global fitness movement. Some of you might be familiar with the Macebell. And I have to give myself props as the first woman on the planet to swing the mace on YouTube. And yeah, it was the prototype for this product that you made. You also hold a master's in financial engineering and specialize in performance metrics. Now, I have to tell you guys, this is my calculator. I use him often to do the math around the house. And then, last but not least, as with every guest, we talk about what you can't live without. And I'm very happy that he said his family. And we have
That's
three
truth.
kids.
That's truth. Well, okay. So I really appreciate that intro. Like I said, anytime we have a tiff, I'm just going to be able to just bring this up and remind you of how much you love me. But you know, you're a fantastic business leader. So this is something that I get to share for a second. It was very interesting when we met. I'd already had my master's degree. I'd already worked in investment banking, a bunch of software companies, and one of the things that attracted me to you as a partner in life, like in terms of marriage, was we were in LA, and I'm gonna be real. There's a lot of good looking people in LA, and I dated a bunch of them, but none of them really brought to the table what you brought. Not only obviously your natural beauty and whatnot, but like you really have an incredible ability, for a work ethic, first of all. But beyond that, you really have a very strategic mind. And so, one of the great things that I enjoyed about working with you is because you were just an employee at Game Master, and as you made yourself more valuable and brought more value to the table and stepped up in ways that other people in the company weren't, leadership recognized that rather quickly, and you were able to grow your division to be bigger than the main division, and so it made a lot of sense for you to take over the company as a whole, and that speaks highly to your ability to learn and adapt and apply things on the fly. And that's really what a lot of times it takes from an entrepreneur. I think a lot of people talk a lot about wanting to be an entrepreneur and, oh, I want to be my own boss. And I coach a lot of people, a lot of high level people, 10 million, $100 million in revenue. And the fact is, and all the way to people just in startup mode. And a lot of these people, that's actually a lie. They don't want to be their own boss. They say, "Oh, I want to be my own boss." They don't want a boss. And the problem is you have to take the responsibility of being your own boss, which is even harder because you're both the master and the slave. You got to do the work and you got to have the vision and push yourself real hard. So you've done that in spades. Very proud of you, how you've been able to grow Game Master, and real proud to see you really take the bull by the horns. I will say this: your success on this podcast took a lot of prodding, but I'm really glad that you stuck to it, and it looks like you're really doing great things.
He told me he was going to embarrass me today. But he's right. I mean, I say to the guests all the time, and I think I've said this on the show. Jake was a huge inspiration for this show. In fact, I think it took him probably a good year before I was willing to go live for the first time. It's not easy to get up here. And a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to put yourself out there like this: the good, the bad, the ugly, the mistakes, sometimes fumbling over words, whatever that looks like. But it took me some time to get the courage to do that, and you were a huge part of that inspiration. Today, I think I saw on Friday in one of our all hands meeting, we were at like 60 something guests that
Wow.
have either been on the show or are coming on this show, you being one of the amazing guests on that list. So I really appreciate you being here. But what I'm most excited to talk to you about, because I've watched you in your own right. I mean, I appreciate all those amazing things you said about me, but watching you and what you've done in your career, both with scientific wrestling, what you're doing with the 10x business coaching, and number one, all of those things that you're doing to help these business owners. I mean, I don't know if you can share some of these things, but I would really love my audience that is listening and watching today to be able to hear, what, first of all, what is scientific wrestling in your words? I know I gave a little bit of that. And tell us a little bit about the mace, because I think one of the things, and I'm sorry, Jake, this is just long winded, but one of the things that I love about what's happening with scientific wrestling and the Macebell is we talk a lot about athletics, and you've written books about athletic performance and business and how it correlates. So I think it's important for the audience to hear a little bit about that and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur. So by the time you and I had met, we met in 2005. My scientific wrestling company was already 2 years old, and this was one of the first. You and I, one of our first projects together was an entrepreneurial thing as well, because we actually met at a dog rescue in LA. I was looking for a dog, and because of a wrestling coach had insisted that I get a dog, a pit bull, that I had to rescue one to continue training with him. I was like, okay, whatever. And so I went, and you happened to be fostering the dog, and we ended up building this relationship. But one of the things, and I'll get to scientific wrestling, one of the things that we did first was that at that time, in addition to Game Master, you were dabbling in modeling and whatnot. And at that time, like pinup modeling was very trendy and popular. And I remember you saying like, oh man, I spent like 35, 40 grand last year just in dog rescue. I was like, whoa, okay. I love that you're committed to it because I would never have met you, but that is no bueno. what we need to do is we need to have other people help you do that. So we ended up creating this thing called Pinups for Pups, which I think we started in 2006 or maybe 2005. I can't remember if we started before or after we got married. But that in itself had some pretty strong legs. I mean, we had members of our crew get on reality TV shows. We had a bunch of kind of B-level celebrities from reality TV come on, like from WWE and from Survivor, to help with that effort. So, um,
America's Greatest Dog. We worked with what's the millionaire Chad Rogers was on one of our fashion shows. The
yeah, I mean, it was very
Yeah.
successful. We only, as we started having children, obviously, there's only so much Jake and Sondra to go around, so we kind of had to put it on the back burner. But for a good 5-10 years, man, that thing was a really successful venture in and of itself, and that was something you and I did together. Um, I had started scientific wrestling a couple years earlier because I had a similar epiphany. I realized, oh my God, I'm spending so much money at this time. I'm going to be 52. But when I was younger, I was so obsessed with UFC. I went to the second UFC here in Denver back in 94. And I was obsessed and I was spending all my money on this endeavor to learn how. And I said, all of a sudden, I just kind of had an epiphany like, man, if I started a business, I could start writing all this off. And then I was like, well, beyond writing it off, I'm actually, because I buy so much and I'm attending these events, I'm becoming an expert. And because I was becoming an expert, people would actually pay me, especially if I could put together events and products. And that was really the genesis of scientific wrestling. And it's been fantastic. It's, as you know, taken me around the world. I've written 2 best-selling books. I've been a best-selling instructor for like a really big wrestling instructional company. Traveled Europe and America, helped tens of thousands of athletes just in this really weird little niche thing. One of the things that I developed along the way, that same man who his name was Carl, my wrestling coach, that told me to go adopt a pit bull. When I was training with him, he had this weird thing that he had picked up in India. And it was in India, they're called a Gada, Gada. You can Google it, Gada. Or you can just go Google Macebell or steel mace. There's all these different words for the same thing. Um, but I could not find one. And I wanted to have one, and I couldn't find it. And I talked to a woodworker, and it was like $400 to make one. I was like, to hell with that. And again, I took the same kind of mentality. I said, well, I can't be alone. I bet you other people would enjoy this. Why don't I just, instead of going getting one made for me, figure out how to get it manufactured? It's going to take the same amount of effort. And it was true. So I pitched the largest manufacturer of kettlebells, which I think everybody knows what a kettlebell is. By this time, they got them at Target, for Pete's sake. I contacted them, pitched them on the idea, showed them some video, and they were like, let's go. I was like, cool. And so we pushed that out. And now, I mean, even like people like Joe Rogan have their own version that they make and produce. And the company he's a part of, On It, which is in Austin, flew me out to honor me for inventing this a couple years ago. And it's really caught on like wildfire. So I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur. When we were first married, I started, I was working, I had my master's degree in financial math, and I was working at the leading at the time originator of reverse mortgages, right? We all see like James Garner and these old dudes pitching this at like infomercials.
Yeah.
But I was working there early on, and I hated the corporate thing. I wanted a little more control, a little more time. You and I were going to start our own family. And so I actually convinced my boss to leave and start the first reverse mortgage consultancy, which is still going to this day, still crushing it. And in fact, I sold my shares, and that's what allowed us to get our home in Colorado, which is a ridiculously expensive market to buy a house in. So, entrepreneurship is a very, very, it's the American dream. It's the American dream. And what I have noticed, and maybe this is just my own perspective, kind of going to what you teed me up for nicely, thank you. was that I've noticed these parallels between sport performance and business performance. They're very similar in a lot of ways because there's competition, there's collaboration, there's points on the scoreboard or money in the bank, which however you want to count. There's metrics involved, statistics. There's a lot of real strong parallels, a lot of risk, a lot of effort, a lot of like really pushing yourself past what you think is humanly possible. Um, so this method that I've come up with, I call it sportify, which is like gamification, but you sportify. It's going a step beyond gamification.
Well, and I would say too, if I could add to that, there's teamwork and sportsmanship, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
your team members are doing better
Collaboration.
than you, right? Which should be the way it is. You got to celebrate those things. You got to celebrate when a team member has a big win and all of those things,
Well, and getting alignment in your team. You know,
right?
like for example, I help a lot of people scale because obviously you start out as a solopreneur and then all of a sudden you quickly realize, oh crap, there's only so much me to go around, and then you become the speed bump, you become the bottleneck because you can't do more than what you can possibly do. And a lot of entrepreneurs are working 68 hours a week, and then it's like,
Right.
oh shit, I'm capped out, pardon my language. But so you do need to get a team, but you want a team that's going to win, right?
Right.
And so it's just the mentality is very, very complementary. So, and this is, I think it bears itself. You could see that people who have taken some sort of athletic, competitive, cooperative, but competitive training, coaching, they do really well in business because it's a very similar mindset and work level and effort level.
Well, then that kind of brings up a question that I have for you because and we've talked a little bit about the coaching that you're doing with the 10x business coaching and number one, your company. And when we look at that, what do you think or how do you drive better performance and productivity from teams? I know that you mentioned having a team that wins, but what do you see being the steps that people take to get there?
I mean, it was really actually so. This is a great segue because I mean, what Grant Cardone has meant to me personally in my own professional journey. You were like, well, this is my husband and my coach, right? And we joke about that. That I should get a business card that says, lover and consultant or whatever. But part of it is that I had reached my own plateaus. Because I had worked in software companies, like two or three pretty good sized Advent Software, Financial Engineering Associates, these software companies, and I was in the support department doing something not all different than what you were doing when we met. I was able to share with you some of these best practices and you and Tiffany and the team. And but I had never studied revenue strategy, right? I was a financial mathematician. I was a statistician. I was very technical. And so I understood structure. I understood a lot of this stuff. I'd worked in investment banking. So I understood the finance side, but I did not understand the revenue side. And, you just, you hit a certain ceiling based on your own competency. And this is also where I think it's like sports, like, man, maybe you're good and you make it to the high school championships. Good job. And you get a scholarship and you go to college. And now the team is made of a bunch of guys that also won the high school championship. And now you ain't hot, what anymore. You're normal again. What are you going to do once you hit that? So this is, you stepped up, you got better coaches, you got all these things. And so that's really, I heard Grant give a talk once. It was kind of a confluence of events, which speaks to Grant's approach too, which is this what he calls omnipresence or multi-channel marketing. Like, and it's aggressive. It's to cut through the noise. Your average person sees 1,500 ads a day when they're scrolling on the toilet or laying in bed or at a stop sign. Or, dude, you see 50
Right.
people are inoculated. So you have to figure out how to cut through that noise. And Grant's the master at this. And so I saw a couple things. I saw this one speech that he gave It's called the 100% philosophy or go all the way. I think you can find it on YouTube. Fantastic. And I listened to it and I'm like, my God, this sounds like a sports coach doing business. That clicked something for me. Then during that fiasco of lockdowns, the whole I thought I was a good risk analyst, but I never in a million years thought they'd turn the whole planet off. Okay. And I'm sorry, I don't want to necessarily be controversial, but I, there should be people in jail that were in positions of power for their abuse of power, for the homes they destroyed, for the lives they affected. We know that some of the stuff they did really has been very, very toxic to people. That was an awful time period. And for people who don't know about, my wrestling business, how do you wrestle with 6 feet of social distance? You don't. Um, everybody listening to this that's in the amusement industry knows that these parks were closed, which made no sense. They're outside for Pete's sake, but it didn't matter because of the tyranny, the systems that were in place to lock everybody down, prison planet. So we were freaked out, and I was freaked out, and we were doing okay, but that kind of exogenous outside shock was a real wake up call. And so I just had to humble myself. And I was like, I need to sit down and listen to this guy. He had fortunately done the TV show, the reality show, Undercover Billionaire, which took place in Colorado where we live. And I was just befuddled. I was like, my goodness, there's like, I had not really found somebody outside of wrestling that I was like, I need to sit at the feet of this guy like a guru, like the Buddha. Like, I mean, I don't want to be blasphemous, but like I was like, I need to sit. This guy is amazing. When I saw what he did on Undercover Billionaire, and it was just hearing him a couple times clicking. And so you and I went to the first event, and as I listened to it, I was just so floored with, you know, the wisdom. But the thing that I really like about the 10X community and Grant Cardone Enterprises in particular is it really truly, I say this over and over, it's a meritocracy with heart. It's
Yeah.
there's a lot of companies that I worked with. I worked in like IndyMac Bank, which was a 5,000 person company, multiple software companies that were big. And a lot of them talk about meritocracy, but it's a lot of it is a lot of political backbiting and BS that people are protecting their positions instead of actually trying to blow up the company and raise the tide that raise all the boats. And this is the first place I've ever been at where it's truly a meritocracy and a meritocracy with heart. They really do care. And I love that. I love the culture. It's a high performance culture, and they really do want you to win.
Well, you know what I love that you're talking about Grant because I know he's also the second billionaire you've worked for, right? So this is not your first time, your first go at this. But you know what everything you said is true. From we saw him on Undercover Billionaire, and we looked at what he was doing and building that $1 million business in 90 days, and realizing that there was some real knowledge and information there that we needed. We needed to
Well,
not only grow
and
our company, but we
not to do a
needed to share.
spoiler, not to do a spoiler. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it was the challenge was $1 million in 90 days, and he 6x that during lockdowns, and he had COVID for half the time. It's just
Yeah,
it's
it's mind blowing.
baffling. And if anybody knows Pueblo, Pueblo is not like the economic hotspot of Colorado. I'd say it's maybe quite the opposite.
Where if you need a cheap house in Colorado, you should go.
It's
Oh, I
probably the
think it's
only place
changing
that's
now.
affordable still. But
Affordable
they've turned
place.
it around. They've turned it around. But I mean, it was
Yeah.
amazing what he did.
It's amazing what he did. And, as Jake mentioned, we went to one of his first events that was happening in Florida. Thank God for Florida because they just kept on going, which is great for attractions. It was also great for us because we got to go be with other business owners and entrepreneurs, find strength in a community of people who are trying to build, and then to be around that kind of information, both from Grant and Elena. I'm a graduate of all of Elena's masterminds. I don't know how many of us are out there, but she is uh, truly one of my, I consider one of my mentors
Well,
and
Grant
somebody
gives her
who's helped me.
it gives her credit for helping him become a billionaire. Like he wouldn't have done it without her. Like literally, it was her idea.
Yeah, and you know, being around a couple like that, especially as a couple who works together, who has aligned goals, you know, I know this is not part of what we're going to talk about, but you know, one of the things that I wanted to mention on the show today is because people often ask me, you know, how do we get along? How do we make this all work with kids and family, me running my companies, you running your companies? And then also coming together as one unit all the time and having to make sure that everybody's successful. And what I love about, I think we always did this. We always had these big goals in the future that were his, mine, and ours, right? Which is super important if you're going to be working with a life partner. But also, so we're aligned on the his, mine, and our goals, right? But then in addition to that, you know, we really sincerely try to help each other achieve those things. And that you know, you mentioned about entrepreneurs. You know, not everybody wants to get into, like you're saying, not everybody wants to actually be the one in charge, because that's a big thing. I mean, I'm about to go speak on a CEO spotlight this week, and I think a big part of why I've been invited to talk about that is because at the end of the day, when it gets to that level, when we talk, you mentioned the pandemic, even a lot of my equals at other companies were bailing on their companies during that time. Nobody wanted to be a part of the ships that were sinking. And it's very hard to stand in your power in those moments when things are going really wrong and you have no control over that. I mean, it was one of the few times in my career where I'm like, this isn't even my fault. There's plenty of mistakes that happen over the years that you have to pick yourself up from. But in that case, so many people found themselves in this situation where they were having to repair their lives and their businesses. And it wasn't their fault, but it was certainly a tough time. And I think what's interesting about what you're doing for businesses is that these businesses that you're helping, they're experiencing tough times. It's probably what brought them into coaching with you and with Grant. They're experiencing hard times in their business, and that might just be a hard time with scaling, right? Because as like you said, you may find yourself being the bottleneck in your company. I say all the time, I'm we just had dinner the other night with a couple of entrepreneurs, one of which she said, well, I love doing all the work. And I'm like, yes, but there are times when you find help, when those people will do better than you. They will do better than you, and you want that. Just because I've been the marketer, the support department, the operator, you know, the manager of opera, just because I've done all of those roles in a company doesn't mean that I'm great at all of that as an entrepreneur. Because the reality is your team is going to be so much better. So, you know, my question for you is, you know, what is the biggest challenge that you see companies that are trying to scale, that find themselves in this place where they're either bumping up against the stress of issues that are happening or just bumping up the stress of scaling? You know, what is the one thing that you think brings people into coaching?
Well, so this is where I have an interest, and this is again where I'm really really appreciative of the work and the way that Grant has done his company and made his services available because as flashy and he kind of looks like he acts like an old white rapper wannabe guy sometimes with the bling and the jets and all that. That's just to get attention. It's almost like how pro wrestling promotes itself, right? It's an over the top version of themselves. But a lot of Grant is, I mean, he's really smart. Um, and that kind of honestly belies it. He's very, very statistics driven. And that was one of the things that really attracted me, given my background. And so, the first thing I think that we have to look at the statistics, first of all. We all know if we're in business, we all know the abysmal statistic that, what is it, 90% of businesses go out in the first 10 years. It is literally easier to become a Navy SEAL than to have a successful business after 10 years. Like if you compare the stats, it's hard. And so the number one reason cited, and this is kind of, I don't like the way it's phrased, so I'm going to rephrase it in a moment. But the term is undercapitalization. To me, that's banks selling you loans. What undercapitalization means is there ain't enough money. Okay, you don't have to get complicated with these wonky terms, and that really is undercapitalization makes you think you got to go get a loan. So it's clever marketing from the banker, but this is what Grant's premise is that the top line of the income statement is the most important line, the gross revenue, because every other line is a function or dependent on that top line. So if you have any insight into the very basics of financial statements and running a business, you're like, oh, okay. So this gives you the importance of the primacy of revenue. And most people don't. This is what I see, what
Yeah.
I did, what I saw you did before the shift. People are focused on product development or service development. I've got the best widget. I've got the best house cleaning service. Great. What good does that do you if nobody knows about it? So the way Grant puts that is best known beats best every time. Is McDonald's the best burger? No. But they are the best known burger. And so what we have to do is hopefully not lose the quality, but we have to increase the quantity of touches, of awareness, of people knowing about us as a business. So this is why Grant says marketing is senior to sales, and sales is senior to everything else. There's three basic things that you have to handle on your way over, say, $3 million. Another brilliant partner that Grant's really brilliant at bringing in great partners, and one of them is a guy named Brandon Dawson, and he talks about these break points, where what's a startup, what's a company that's growing, where's a company maturing, like these break points. The first break point is under $3 million, right? This is where 99% of companies live. Most companies, I think it's 97% of companies are under $3 million. It's tiny. Okay. So what do you have to do to get up over that? Three things. One, you got to have a good product. Most people that's done. But then the other two, the majority, 2/3, marketing or promotion, and two, sales or converting, right? And so I think that the number one thing people have to grasp is you have to get known. You have to go get attention. And again, we live in this age where people see 1,500 ads a day. So you have to be aggressive. You have to get out there if you don't have millions to spend on ads. But there's ways to do it. There are ways to go out there and get in front of your targeted audience, like what we're doing right now. All this is presence of mind and discipline and persistence. But it is that getting in front of the people. That's the first most important thing that I think everybody needs to figure out. Now, if I may, one of the things that I'm really excited about, in particular for Game Master and for the people that are watching this show, is that I've been with Grant now for a little over 3 years, and I'm his number one coach of all, and it's highly competitive. I'm the number one guy for the entire year 2024. Without get pulled up in front of 70,000 people on the GrowthCon stage happening in about a week. I've been doing it for a while, and now I'm very excited because as of about a week ago, now you and Tiffany are both able to come in as coaches and leverage this information. Of course, I'm always happy to help if somebody wants to talk to me, but you have lived this and experienced this in the last couple of years, to learn these tricks that, it's not, it really is like being an athlete. You've got to perform. You've got to be consistent. You've got to show up to practice every day. You've got to train, and you've got to get out there and get beat up sometimes. That's what it takes, but you got to do it on the revenue side. So I'm real excited about that.
And you got to show up, showing up. You don't
So
show up to practice.
all the people that are in the attractions industry now, if you're having a hard time, you said, what's the biggest thing to tell people scale and grow? Revenue is the number one thing.
Yes.
Now, Game Master is partnering with Cardone Enterprises And now we're able to offer that to anybody. You want your employees trained on the number one sales and marketing training platform, that's responsible for over 1 billion different transactions. That's Cardone University, for example. We can help you get your team on there. It helps with engagement, with alignment, all those kind of things. So I'm very, very excited because I think the attractions industry really needs that. That's the first step, is revenue. The second step on scaling is you have to really step into your role as a leader. And I think that people have leadership really messed up. It's not being a boss. I've never met, like, if I asked a bunch of little kids, hey, who wants to be managed when they're grown up? No little kid raises their hand. Nobody wants to be managed. But most of the little kids want to do a job that where they're coached. Because a coach is different than a manager. A coach is interested in the development of the person. Now, when this person happens to work for your company, everybody makes money.
Yeah.
Everybody has job security. So number one is revenue, but two is learning how to hire, fire, and reward people in the right way.
Yeah, no, I love that. And Jake kind of mentioned something that we never talked about on the show. So we've had what for almost 5 years now, the entire team at Gate Master. If you are on our team, you train every day on Cardone U. And the
Yep.
reason for that, there's a lot of reasons for that. One, we all speak the same language. The language, the winning language, the revenue language. We know that our team can speak to our attraction partners about that language. So when they see that they are struggling with revenue or leadership, this is also what led us to do our GT Summit, because we realized that there was additional training and valuable information that many of our parks or some of their team members didn't have in order to succeed at what they do. And having a mission of helping attractions massively succeed, we had an ethical obligation to get better at what we did, and so that we can help you find those same things. And it's interesting because you brought up leadership, and I know that fostering a strong culture or coaching culture can impact revenue growth. But what are some ways that, I mean, maybe you can give us some actionable steps that those watching can take to do that? I mean, you've given us a lot today, actually, which I really appreciate. And Jake's very giving this way, and this is why we love having him around the office. In fact, he's in the office next door.
Yeah, this is the illusion of television. I'm literally like in the next room. But yeah, so okay, so it depends who's really listening. Okay, so you're going to have employees listening. Um, One of the things you can do as an employee is try to figure out how you can contribute to revenue. You want to be in alignment with the boss? Stop kissing ass. Stop like trying to buy them presents or compliment them on dumb shit. They smell you coming a mile away. You look like Eddie Haskell and Leave It to Beaver for some of you older people. It's lame. Why don't you figure out how to actually bring in some revenue, how to make some deals, how to do like it's ridiculously easy once you figure it out. So we have a program here at Cardone called the Millionaire Employee Method, and it's really how the president of Cardone Enterprises got into that position from just being a sales guy. But this speaks to what you're saying. Like everybody at Game Master, for example, we can use Game Master as a wonderful case study. I have tons of case studies, but I think this might be most relevant to the audience. Is that everybody from our development team, yes, even the programmers, the QA people, the support people, the people taking out the garbage, the people doing marketing, the people doing sales, the people doing operation. Every single person understands what's important for the good of the company and how they can benefit by helping the company. So that's actually for management and for employees. So employees, you got to start looking for opportunities like that. And then hopefully you have a manager smart enough to recognize that you're doing that, and that
Yeah.
they see the value. Oh my God, this is a good person, right? For the company, for helping making sure that we're providing the best, for example, guest experience so people come back and there's recurring revenue and I can afford to buy my kids that computer they want, or I can take the family on a trip, or these things that come with delivering superior value to your client base. So that would be like at the management and the employee level. You've got a leader, I think, is best defined by what do they do. There's a leader and then there's followers. Follow means go after. So lead means go first. So if you want to be a leader, what's that Gandhi thing? Like, be the change you want to see or whatever. Take charge. Say, I want to do this. I want to benefit the company in this way. I'm going to use this opportunity. Maybe, this is where a lot of people have things messed up. We know that engagement is at an all-time low. This whole quiet quitting thing. People are actively disengaged. People are like just cashing a check and not doing work. That's theft. Hate to break it to you, it's criminal. Now, are people prosecuted for it? No, they should be, honestly. And if you're doing it, I've done it in my life. I'm not proud of it. People usually quit 6 months before they actually quit. So this is why it's important for you to know how to hire, fire, and reward people if you're in a position of management or executive leadership, because you're running a team. So again, if you think about like a sports team, if you had people that weren't showing up to practice, fumbling the ball, their stats are down, what happens? You put them on the bench. And if they don't improve, they're gone. You trade for somebody who actually can do it.
Yeah.
Was Tom Brady a better quarterback than Bill Belichick? Yes, to what you were saying. When you hire somebody, you want to hire somebody better than you because you want to win. This is where you have to figure out how to get alignment out of your team and how to do these things. So, I'm happy to tell anybody everything, but the problem is sometimes it takes a little bit of time to unpack all of this stuff. But I think the first thing you can do is it's like situational awareness, right? Like, how do you not get mugged? Keep your head out of your cell phone and be aware of your surroundings. Like, how do you keep your job? Keep your head up, focused on how can I help the company and the leadership hit their goals? What's the mission of the company? How many people, one of the things I love to do is go into a company, especially with like the C-suite executives, and quiz them. Okay, guys, hey, who knows what the mission of the company is? Crickets. Like, how the hell can you guys execute when you don't even have a common goal? You don't even know what the goal of the company is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that people can do at every level of the business that they're in to be better engaged, to be better people, so they can look at themselves better, look at themselves in the mirror. You don't have to take all these stupid pills that pharmaceutical companies are pushing on you. You could just be proud of yourself and do the stuff that actually, makes you a better person and makes the people that have taken a risk on you a better group of people to belong to.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it's interesting because I'm about to take the stage this week, as in Staten Island, the Connect and Collab Summit. I'm very excited about that. And I'm taking the stage as the CEO spotlight. And what's interesting to me, because I know my story, some people out there know my story of being an employee in this company, the youngest and only woman. I only mention that because it's fun, and it was a different time, and it had its challenges. But at the end of the day, what you're saying about the millionaire employee, those employees who become entrepreneurs
Yeah.
in their organizations, that's essentially what I did. Not knowing that had there been training available, had there been information, maybe that road would have been a little smoother and cleaner and maybe less mistakes would happen, which is why I love that Grant and Jared have put this together, because that's also his story. But again, I will say this, it all goes back to revenue. None of that hard work matters if it doesn't show up as results.
Well, because there's all this like talk of like, oh, sustainability and these companies. Oh, we've got to be sustainable. You ain't sustainable if you don't got revenue. Period. The company's going out of business. Revenue needs to be the primary thing. That's not callous. That's not crude. That's saying abundance. We need to create more than we consume. That's like a general principle in human existence. Is we
Yeah.
need to be generally producing more than we consume. But this is like a whole cultural zeitgeist thing that I think we're kind of in the middle of right now about personal responsibility and like, oh, do I wait for Big Daddy government? Yeah, that $700 check from during lockdowns that didn't go very far. When I got 3 kids and a house payment, and it's like I need to be responsible. I need to be in charge of things. I need to do this, and you can do that with a group of like-minded people. Now, the thing that I like about Game Master offering the 10X suite of trainings is that usually you had to be a Disney. You had to be a gigantic megalith that could afford to bring in this kind of professional development training for your team. But what we've done is through this partnership, this is something that you can bring on to your team. And obviously, it's a write off and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you off my, because I'm a math guy, off of my own case studies, I'm getting people a over 1,000% return on their investment in coaching. Money, monetary. So you spend 25,000 with me, you're gonna get
Yeah.
1,000 times that, right? Like 1,000% return on the investment. And we know that coaching in general, it has like a 200% in the average industry average is like 200%. But I have to outdo everybody, so mine is like 5 times that. But nonetheless, this is an opportunity for people. Let me put it this way, and Sondra can attest to this. For years, I just was like, man, I feel like I'm the smartest person on this subject right now, and I can't do better. I cannot get us up over whatever the plateau is, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10, 10 million. I just can't do it. And so this was, you mentioned this, Grant's the second billionaire I work with. This is what I do. Why my company is called No1, because I try to find the number one person that I can get in front of to teach me. I've done that in wrestling, and that's made my company very successful. And I've done that in business, and that's made me very successful. And so, that's what I love about Grant. Grant is literally a multi-billionaire, and he really is willing to show you. He documented the entire path for people. So I've been very blessed to find a community where I can succeed and I can win, and very blessed to have a family, of course you, but even our kids. It's not easy. I'm literally up every day working already because my clients, a lot of them are East Coast or overseas, like Australia or some weird time zone. So I'm working late and I'm working early, and then I'm working in between to be number one. So, but once you find that purpose and you find something that you really care and you want to make that impact, it's awesome. And it's even better when you can make some money doing it too.
Yeah, well, I love that you brought up the family because, one of the things that has really made all of this possible for both you and I, all the things that we do. I mean, even this week, we have some tremendous wins. We have a son who has a Broadway level production. I mean, they're doing the full Hades Town opening up on Friday. We have our youngest turning 13. Our daughter's headed to the Mediterranean. I'm headed to New York. And next week, you're going to be on the GrowthCon stage. I mean, we have so much to look forward to as a family. And those are just some of the shares that we have here. But I think, just what I'd love for the audience to hear today, because this is something that I hear all the time, is how do you do it? How do you do it all? I get all these moms just exhausted looking at me. How do you do it? And the way that we do it is we stay really, really excited, and the entire family's aligned, just like we align our team with our
Yeah.
goal. Our kids want attractions to massively succeed. They love what we do. They think we have the coolest job ever because they get to go experience these parks sometimes too. And that's a big part of the fun of what they get to do. But at the end of the day, we've shared with them who we are and the missions that we're on. And it's very easy for us to, it's not easy to leave. It's never easy to leave your family when you got to travel, if I'm being completely real. It's not easy to leave, but it makes it so much easier when you know that they don't mind you leaving because you're on a big mission that has big impact. And I can only say that with Jake because we have had a lifetime together, almost 20 years of having to figure out how to stay aligned as a couple, but also to include our family in what we do. And there's a lot of big things happening here um, in our home. But many of you are running businesses with your family. I mean, it's one of the reasons I love the attractions industry because there are a lot of families that are working together and trying to figure this out. And I believe that if we can help those families align their goals, right? Because everybody's rich life looks different at the end of the day. But if you can
Well,
align
that's
everybody's,
part of it. That's part of the shift from coaching to managing. A
right?
manager doesn't really find out what are the hopes and dreams of the staff, each individually. But a coach does because a coach realizes, oh, that's what's going to motivate this person to perform out of control. So, for example, maybe it's some inner city kid who doesn't actually like basketball that much, but he knows that's his ticket out. So he's up 4 a.m., free throws and layups, you know, working his ass off because he knows he's motivated. But if you don't know what that is with your team, and I'm talking short term, long term goals, and how do they use like a lot of this is stuff that you're not taught. And you're not taught, trust me, I have a master's degree. I'm overeducated, and I was not taught any of this at any level along the way. It's how do you actually grow your business? How do you grow your business from where you are now to where you want to get? And honestly, how do you exit? How do you grow this thing and make it valuable enough? There's a great movie out there with Michael Keaton called The Founder, and it's about Ray Kroc and how he went to these McDonald brothers. It wasn't even his company, and he saw, oh man, these guys got a cool thing. They're automating, and there's 10 locations. That was the level of their thinking. The McDonald's brothers, 10 locations. Ray Kroc said, I could take this to millions and millions of locations, China, everywhere. There's a McDonald's everywhere now. So,
Yeah.
people, some of that stuff is not taught in university because sadly, university is taught by guys who never made more than $70,000, $80,000 a year, out of teaching out of a textbook from another guy who never made more than $70,000 or $80,000 a year. You've got to get into the proximity of these people who've actually done what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And not only get in the proximity, so because you mentioned that, Ray Kroc thought bigger than the McDonald brothers. You need to get around people who dream so big and so ridiculously that you're comfortable dreaming that big and ridiculous, right? That's the thing that I think being married to you, we just walk around this planet, every person we meet, getting them to think bigger and dream bigger, and I mean, it's made for a really fun life. So I really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing these insights because I think you shared some really big insights for people, things that they could just easily take. I mean, you don't have to know everything to get started on this. You just have to want to be better. You want to be coachable. Actually, I had one of the kids directors, because all three of them are actors. One of the kids directors told me just the other day that my youngest, she said, he's so coachable. I can't wait till he gets older. And I can't think of a more something that would make me more proud of my kid than to hear that they are coachable. Because guess what, guys? We got to be coachable our entire lives. No matter where you are, if you're at the highest levels of this business game and you don't think you're coachable, you're crazy. I don't think you can get there without feeling like you can be coached. And I'm sure. Look, can I tell you something? We've seen Grant's coach. He has no problem saying this is my mentor, right? So we know that at the highest levels of business, where we're talking billions, those people are being coached. So if you think you are too good to be coached, you are probably mistaken. So, um, yeah, go out there, get yourself a coach, be a coach, right? We had IAPA on the show last week, and they're talking about their mentor mentee program. Get involved in the coaching of others so you can see that kind of impact that it has on the people around you so you can take that back to your businesses and your teams. This is so important. So thank you, Jake, for being here today, for being who you are, being somebody who inspires me, being somebody who inspires the team. Jake shows up to our meeting and gets everybody all hyped up. Our all hands meetings gets everybody hyped up, and it's always fun to see his face on the calls. And I know everybody appreciates the insights that he has. And if you're ever in the office here with us, I hope you do come out to our GT Summit happening April 9th and 10th. You might even hear Jake yelling at somebody down the hall.
Well, I am going to be speaking, so I promise I'll try to keep yelling at the attendees to a minimum. But yeah, you can hear me joking. It's like everybody walks by, they're like, dude, I could tell you're in the office today. So,
But they're thanking you, right? Because a lot of times it's because you care. You care about their success. You care about their goals. You care about them achieving what they want. Sometimes a coach cares more than you do at times. And that is why at the beginning of this show I mentioned that even at times when I've struggled with my own believing in myself, I've been so lucky to have a partner who believed in me even in those moments where I was struggling. And I'm not saying that happens all the time, but I'm saying it is going to happen in life because sometimes we go through pandemics,
well,
right?
you've done the same thing for me. I mean, many times, sometimes I'm just so burned out and pissed off, and I'm like, I'm going to quit this. I can't handle this. You're like, no, you need to do it. You get me going again. It's actually a really important thing, and I think it's, um, this coaching industry didn't really exist like 10 years ago. Um, but I'm so glad it does because I think it's really something that's very important because a coach doesn't come in with all the pretentiousness of like, oh, I've got an MD or I'm a psychologist or all this bullshit. They just are somebody who really cares and really is willing to have the hard conversations and push you. So
Yeah.
yeah, I hope everybody comes out to the GT Summit. It's going to be amazing. I'm really excited for it. I know there's like sick speakers. Like, I mean, number one rule of success is showing up. If you don't show up, it ain't going to happen. So I'd love to see everybody show up here. Love to meet everybody in person, talk about your situation, and win.
Well, and let me just tell everybody who's watching right now, this GT Summit is going to have legends available in an intimate setting. If you can't make it to Denver, there are virtual tickets. You're going to have access to these recordings. And, this is what we're talking about. Get coached. Come and get coached by these people. Jake's going to be there. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, and
There's going
listen,
to be
you
a
guys are gonna.
lot of
And
great
here's
people
another
there.
tip too. You got to stop with this middle class mentality and this poverty mindset. You got to start thinking about an ROI and not price. I'm serious. Like you got to start thinking about the return on an investment. If I said to you, look, I will give you $1 billion if you can bring me $1 million in 90 days, you'd figure out the $1 million to get the 1,000% return. That's what coaching. The coaching is if you get a great coach, literally I get people in 10x return. Literal, like 1,023% is the number. 10x multiple on coaching. So anyway, I appreciate you, Sondra, very much. And it's so funny. This is the first time we've done this, but it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. All right, guys. Well, that's the show for today. That was a long show today because Jake has a lot of really great information. I mean, and if I'm being real, I could sit with that guy all day, and I do. I'm very lucky to sit next door to him and to be able to share this life with him, get to share all that we do, and that I get to share all of his insights with all of you. So thank you for joining me. And as I said, we are going to be hosting the GT Summit here in Denver, Colorado. We've got tickets available. I hope that you will join us because it's a beautiful time to be here in Denver. We're also going to get you a little taste of Denver. And we're going to do a little wine tasting as well. If you get a VIP ticket, you can join me and the speakers for a wine tasting, Q&A. We're talking about getting in the room. We talk about getting in the room because it's super important for you to be coached. It's super important for you to be around other people who are doing what you're doing, who have ideas, who want to collaborate. We're going to have Deanna Jean talking about collaboration. She's going to be doing some talks about how to know what type of collaborators each of your team members are. I mean, would you like to know where your team stands when it comes to collaboration? She's going to be talking about that. So join us April 9th and 10th. I believe there's a link in the chat. We'd love to have you join us. And I think there's just going to be so much great information for you that you're going to be able to take back to this season and create that revenue that you're looking for. And, we have a promise here at Gate Master that you're going to see anywhere between a 20 and 40% increase in revenue. And even if we could just make a fraction of that happen, I hope that you understand that it's just about getting that revenue up. We've got to get that revenue up because you don't have a business without it. There's no such thing as a business with no revenue. I guess there are nonprofits, but we're not talking about those guys, right? We're talking about those of you, especially those of you running a family business. That's where the heart for me is those of you out there running businesses where your families are depending on it and everybody's drinking from that same well. You want to be successful and you want to make sure that there's water there. So let's get you guys the information that you need and have you join us at the GT Summit. Thank you for listening to today's show. I'm excited for you to see Jake on stage April 9th and 10th. And if you, like Jake or any of the guests that have been on the show, would like to share your industry insights and knowledge, visit livewithsondra.com. There's a guest form there, and you could be one of those guests that comes on here and helps attractions massively succeed because you shared that information with all of us. Thank you again for listening. I appreciate all of you out there. Until next time, go out there and be great.